Well, Jenna, thanks so much for joining me for this episode. I'm really excited to talk about values and alignment and just living life the way we want to live life. So let's jump into it. And I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about how you got interested in the topic of values alignment, values-based leadership.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation. Yeah, so when I was in college, for a small stint, I had a leadership minor, and I had probably one of the most influential professors I've ever had, and that's coming saying a lot. I have 4 degrees now, so
Yeah.
a lot of schooling under my belt,
Yeah.
and I was so infatuated with the idea that he brought up of this idea of values-based leadership, and really his definition of that was living life in alignment with the things that you say matter to you most.
Mm.
And specifically, how do we leverage those when we think about our career and long-term goals and our professional life?
Mhm.
And I fell in love with that. I don't think I did a great job of living that the first bit of my career, but I think through some really weird experiences, I started to realize what were my values and what did I care about, and really living in alignment with those things and making choices based on my values. And I think through all of those experiences, I realized how impactful it can be. But with that, I also realized like I learned this in this one class, which
Mm.
was just like a slight, one of those butterfly things that it's
Yeah.
like, wow, I happen to take this class. I happen to have a really good professor.
Yeah.
How many people don't have those opportunities?
Right.
And so once I got into my career, I was like, everyone needs to know this. And
Mm.
I think that made me fall in love with it even more, right?
Mhm.
Like I think we fall in love with things twice, like when it
Yes.
happens to us and then when we get the opportunity to share it with other people. And
Yeah.
so I feel like now I have the opportunity of really falling in love with values-based leadership every day because I
Mhm.
get to teach other people how to identify their values and use them in their own decision making. And I think that just reminds me of how important it really is.
Yeah, I love that, right? I love that values is playing this role in leadership and especially for women, right? Like aligning all of those things feels like a perfect happy storm of opportunity. So that's really cool. It's really cool. Well, I know that you shared with me that you enjoy connecting the heart stuff, HEART stuff that shapes how we show up. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, so I feel like when I really became in love with leadership, I started leading teams of people, and I would say I was a self-identified not emotional person. Like
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't really raised in like a household where we talked about emotions. I didn't start going to therapy until I was well into my 30s, and I just wasn't raised around those environments. And so
Sure.
when I started leading teams, I realized how important it was to understand people's EQ, their emotional intelligence, and
Hmm.
certainly for leaders to be able to lean in to that.
Mm.
And from that experience, I just realized how important it was and how much there was a lack of understanding in that area. And
Hmm.
I think part of that really came from the fact that we are singular humans. Like I think especially as women, we try to like compartmentalize and break things apart and be like, oh, okay, today I have on my wife hat and tomorrow I have on my leader hat and the
Sure.
next day I have my mom hat on. And like, that's not how human beings work.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
one singular human being. And so I think leaning into that and leaning into how emotions impact our ability to show up as our best self,
Hmm.
especially as someone that most of my life I didn't understand emotions. And I had to
Hmm.
really do some rewiring of my brain to understand why things populate the way they do in my emotional sphere and how it populates for other people. And once I did that, I was like, whoa, I was like, yes, this is so important, but it's also kind of the game changer of what makes leaders exceptional, like
Mm.
those people that people actually want to work for, and the
Yeah.
people that are like, I would move mountains for my supervisor. I would literally do whatever they say and not even question it. I think the difference is the people that not only have emotional intelligence, because I think there are a lot of people that logically can understand emotions,
Sure.
but actually can regulate their own emotions and show up honoring emotions while also being their best self.
Hmm. Mm. As a leader myself, I know everything you just said. I'm like, yes. And it is so hard to do, right? Like, because there's just, like you said, there's a lot of things always getting thrown in there. And as a leader, you got to be kind of ready to pivot and shift. And I'm thinking about basketball moves, right? Like, you got to be able to shuffle to the left when they go right and all that good stuff. So, Yeah, I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper with you on that. So, like, well, because I know leadership is complex, right? It's a beast. It can be a beast. And so I'm curious, some of the that work is navigating the ambition and authenticity, and how do leaders do this? How do you get to be both ambitious and authentic?
Yeah, so I always tell people, let's start with basics, right? So if you don't know your values, start there.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
let's figure that out because I think as human beings, and I think especially women in America right now, I can't really speak to the rest of the world, but
yeah,
especially in America, we are taught like that we're supposed to be superheroes. You're supposed to
yeah,
be able to do it all and do it all really, really well.
yeah.
And I think a huge part of that is ambition, is that I think most women want to be excellent at everything we do, whether you're a CEO or a stay-at-home mom or, I don't know, I was gonna say captain of the PTO, whatever the head person of the PTO is.
Yes.
Clearly, I'm not a parent. But whatever that is, like I think most women are just wired to be ambitious and to be good at what we're thrown into and what we're doing with our lives. The challenge with that is ambition thinks very short term. It thinks in
Yeah.
a lot of yeses and not a lot of nos. Ambition does not think very well with boundaries. And I think all of those things lean in really well to authenticity. Is
Hmm.
that someone that is really living in alignment with their values and is living in a life that is authentic to who they really are, they are often analyzing situations and maybe saying no sometimes to things
Hmm.
that are not in alignment with who they are, where they're going, or what they want to achieve.
Hmm.
Whereas ambition pulls us, and ambition says, like, well, you should just say yes. This could be your big break. This
Yeah.
could be the opportunity you get promoted, you make more money, you get to buy an investment property. Like,
Hmm.
ambition tricks us. And it means well. Like, I don't think being ambitious is malicious at
Sure.
all, but it does trick our brain. It tricks our brain into thinking that everything is going to be the thing. It's going to be the good thing. It's going to be the next thing. When in
Mm,
reality, authenticity asks us, like, is this actually the best use of your time?
mm,
Is this actually something that is going to be a good investment for you? Is this something that honors who you are right now and what season of life you're in? I
mhm.
think this is something that a lot of mid-level professionals really struggle with, is that
Sure.
most mid-levels are ready for the next step. They want to be an executive, they want to move up, and that's mostly the clientele that I end up doing private coaching with. And I love mid-level managers because it's the worst job ever.
Worst
It
job ever.
really is the worst job ever. And so they have the most complex problems. But I think the one thing I always remind people, and it's where I start almost all my coaching conversations, is like, let's identify your values, your mission statement, and your personal vision statement, and
Mhm.
see how you can continuously go back to that every single day. Every time you have to make a hard choice, every time something difficult is popping up, go back to those things, ask yourself, am I still in alignment with those? And then make the decision that is most true to that statement.
Mm,
And I think if you do that, you're living authentically. I
mhm.
think if you cannot answer that question or you're straying further away from that question, you're probably leaning closer to ambition and probably further away from authenticity. And
Mm.
I think if you can ask yourself that often, I think you can have both, but you have to be willing to ask yourself that hard question.
Yeah, yeah. I think, well, I'm going to tell my listeners now for a second, pause this episode and write down your values, right? If you know them, pause, write down your values. And if you don't, then come back and re-listen after you have written down your values, right? And if you're driving, you can hit pause, but do not take your hands off the steering wheel. And so I think that, I encourage my listeners and some of my older episodes certainly to do that, right? Like sometimes as we listen to these episodes, it's important to like be in the moment with the episode. So, I think what you said there in terms of like identify your values, and if you don't know what those are, like take some time to do that. And that's really important work and your mission statement and those sorts of things. So I appreciate that. And I was like nodding along. I was like, oh, Jenna just knows me, right? Like she's been in my head about the ambition part, right? Because I do think that mid managers, right, they want to do it all to get to the next level. And so being able to say no and be authentic to yourself and to your work, that resonated with me, Jenna. So, oh
Mm.
gosh.
Thank you.
Gosh.
Well, I think honestly, I think most people are living the same career life, just in different roles, different
Mm,
organizations, but most of us are having a very similar experience. And
yeah.
I think I say that often to people, not to belittle their experience, but to validate their experience,
Yeah.
that people are so isolated when it comes to leadership development because it's not something we talk about a lot. And so
Hmm.
people think that their issues are really only theirs. Like they're the only ones that have bad employees, or they're the only ones that can't get promoted, or they're the only ones who doesn't make enough money. And I'm like, oh, y'all, that is
Yeah.
like every person under the sun. And
Yeah.
so I think the more that we can validate those experiences for others, it makes us realize how not alone we are. And there's
Yeah.
actually a really big community of people that are experiencing very similar things. Like I
Hmm.
think that's my understanding of why you created this podcast,
Yeah,
is for people to
absolutely.
really be able to share their stories, so people that they feel more empowered, that like
Mm.
you can make it, you can do it, it's going to be okay, because like we're all human beings living pretty much the same life.
Yeah, yeah, talking about the things we're not but should be. So, absolutely, absolutely. Now, Jenna, I'm curious to know from you, how are you living unapologetically?
So I think that it would be super hypocritical of me not to say that I try really hard to live life in alignment with my values every day. I really do.
Yeah.
I believe in modeled leadership, and I believe that I'm a leader in a lot of spaces in my life. And so I try really hard to actually do what I say works and what I teach other people to do. So like I have my mission statement like glued on a wall in my living room that I see every day. I
Yeah.
have my values saved on my phone. I have them printed in my office. Like,
Yeah.
and I ask myself often these questions of like, one of my values is empowerment. And so like I ask myself, like, am I actually empowering others to make good choices? Am I empowering
Mm-hmm.
myself to make good choices?
Mm-hmm.
One of my values is health. And, every day when I get home from work and I don't want to go to the gym because I am not that disciplined, just like the rest of the world is not
Yeah.
that disciplined. We are not all Mark Wahlberg. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that dude. We're just not. And so I always ask myself that. I'm like, okay, well, one of my top values is health. So like if I'm actually honoring that, then I'm going to go to the freaking gym. It doesn't matter that I'm tired or I don't want to. Like
Yeah.
that's who I said I was and what's important to me. So
Yeah.
I think that's how I live unapologetically, is
Yeah.
that I think most people are really scared to not be what society wants us to be.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And part of my mission, my personal mission statement for my life, is breaking the chains that society boxes us into. I
Mm-hmm.
do not believe I was meant to do one singular thing with my life. I do not believe that I can be a career person or a great wife. I think I can do both. I
Mm-hmm.
do not believe that I can't be present as my parents age and not excel in my career. I think I can do both.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like living in alignment with my values, understanding my mission for my life, really allows me to live unapologetically, not just like for me personally, but I believe honoring what I think other people should do too, and showing them what it looks like. Does
Yeah.
it require making hard choices some days? It totally does.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect. There's some days I don't go to the gym. But it at least requires me to try. It requires me to reflect. It requires me to think. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one thing I often tell my students and my coaching clients, is that if there's one thing you learn from me, I hope it is the ability to critically think about the decisions you make in your life, because that is not something we are really taught to do
Yeah.
anymore. We are taught to follow a copy and paste method that does not work for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a beautiful thing, because
Mm-hmm.
although we are all living very similar experiences, your life should be your own, and it should be your choices that actually influence that life. And so
Mm-hmm.
I try to live my life in a way that shows to people like
Mm-hmm.
you can make unpopular choices. Like my husband and I choose to be child free by choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very unpopular
Sure.
choice for a lot of people. And I don't care. It's wonderful. I love it. We love our life.
Yeah.
And I love being an auntie. I love, all the kiddos in our life, but I didn't want that for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so I choose to be unapologetic in that way. Is
Yeah.
family still one of my values? It is.
Yeah.
But to me, family means something different than
Yeah.
having four kiddos and a white picket fence.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I think I need to ask my listeners that more often, right? How are you living unapologetically? I love that.
It's such a good
Very
question.
It is. It really is. It really is. All right. Well, why is this important to women? We've already touched on a couple of reasons throughout this episode about why, women are do things or show up the way they do, but why is this important for women specifically?
Oh man, I think that's ironic. Um, I think it's just because there's so much pressure put on us as women to do whatever everyone tells us we're supposed to do. And I think that, I would love to say that as a society, we're in this place where we support all women and that you can make whatever choices you want. But I still think that we are very much so still paving the way for the women that will come after us.
Yeah.
And so that requires us to make very hard choices. And I think this is one of them. I
Mhm.
think living in alignment with your values, understanding your values, being okay with walking a path that is different than maybe, honestly, even maybe what your family expects of you. I
Mhm.
think that's the conversation I have with a lot of people is that, do you want to be in this career or is this what someone told you should be
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
Do you want to live in this part of the United States or did this just happen to be where your family lives and you just chose never to leave? And so
Yeah.
I think honoring the people that have come before us and the women who have made exceptionally hard choices so that we could have the rights that we have now. I
Mhm.
think we honor them by helping pave the way for the next generation.
Mhm.
I always think about my grandma was part of the feminist movement back in London, which is where she originally was from.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, she used to always tell me about it and tell me about the rallies and, being this loud, audacious woman. And it was hard for me to understand because
Mhm.
obviously I grew up in a different generation where like I didn't have to fight for the right to vote. I
Right.
didn't have to fight for the right to walk around without my husband being with me. I can apply for a credit card and actually use it without someone else being on the card.
Yeah.
And I always think about her because she didn't have any of those rights. She fought for all of those
Mhm.
rights. And she fought for them so also that I could have those rights.
Right.
And so I think about that trickle down effect, and what it means to be a woman and to stand up for something.
Yeah.
And I think about, I have three nieces who are just the precious, oh my God, they're so precious. I love them all so much. And I think about them all the time that
Yeah.
like I want them in 20 or 30 years to be able to stand on my shoulders and do something really freaking epic
Yeah.
and be able to change the next generation. And what example is it to them if I'm not making hard choices and I'm not doing the hard things and I'm not saying the hard things? And so I think this is actually exceptionally important for women because if we do not voice our own opinions on how we want to live our life, what is important to us,
Mhm.
I promise you someone else will make that choice for us.
Mhm.
And so it's our responsibility to be loud and proud and kind of obnoxious
Yeah.
about why we choose to live the life the way we do. And I think certainly you need to be able to back it up. You need to be able to say
For
why you're
sure.
doing what you're doing,
For sure.
but you should be loud and proud and obnoxious about your values and your mission and that it might be different than someone else's. And what a powerful statement to make because you get to have a life that is different than someone else's.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's I got chills as you were talking about your grandma and like that was really cool. I thank you for sharing that story. I often think about my two little girls as I think about the work that we're doing and the state of America right now and having hard conversations with really young humans about the way we show up and the way we stick up for one another, especially as women and rally. So yeah, I think that I'm on board. I am Team Jenna on this one for sure. In that we've got to be paving the way for the next generation and the generation after that, right? Like all of the downstream. So whew, this was good. I loved this. This was a lot of fun. So, as we wrap it up, what kind of final thoughts do you have for my listeners?
I think that I say this often to a lot of people, and I kind of think that it's like the one thing I always go back to. But if you are not sure what makes you special
Mm,
or like why you're on this planet, like what makes you the necessity that we need a you,
mhm,
I think you need to do some self-reflection on your mission and your values and your vision statement of your life. And I think really come to terms with the fact that like you are the only you and there is a reason that we need that you. And maybe to someone that is going through something hard that it is you should push, like you should overcome that hard thing so that the world can experience whatever unique beautiful thing you have to give to the world, but
Hmm.
you also have to do that work to figure out what that is, because it's no one else's responsibility to explain why the world needs you and
Hmm.
why you should be in certain spaces and why you should get a seat at the table. That is your responsibility to advocate for yourself. But I think this is such a good step one for a lot of people to recognize the value they bring to the table.
Hmm.
Because I think a lot of people don't know that. And maybe I am audacious for saying this, but I always joke with folks, I'm like, I know what I bring to the table. I bring the whole freaking table. I
Yeah.
bring a 5-course dinner. I bring wine, vodka, and tequila.
Oh.
I bring all the desserts. I bring cupcakes. I bring cake. I bring gluten free everything. And I am so proud of that because I
Hmm.
know the value that I bring to spaces. And
Hmm.
I hope, if nothing else, that someone could be encouraged and reminded that you bring that much value to a space too.
Yeah.
I just did so much work within myself to understand myself well enough that I
Hmm.
could say those things and not feel cocky and egotistical because I know it's true.
Yeah.
So that's what I would leave with them. Do the work so that you can be able to say those big, audacious statements and for it to feel real and authentic because you bring that much value to every space that you're in. Every woman does.
Mm. Mm. I love it. I'm taking notes over here. I've got all the notes so that I can go back and refer to it. This is such good stuff, Jenna. This is a perfect way to end this podcast. I have really enjoyed learning from you and dialoguing with you. So thank you so much for spending time with me and with my listeners as you shared your expertise and your stories.
Well, thank you. I'm so impressed by what you're doing here, and I'm so excited to see the future episodes and all the incredible women you get to have a conversation with. Because I truly believe that we are the future, we're the change, and
Yeah.
it's important to do what you're doing. So, thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And friends, thank you for coming along for another episode of the I'm Done Apologizing podcast. Hopefully, you also took some really good takeaways from Jenna, some nuggets of information, and some notes. But again, if you're driving, you're hopefully not taking notes in the same way that I was. So, friends, this week's affirmations: I'm done apologizing for spending time focused on me. I'm done apologizing for bringing my value to the table. A bonus one, I'm done apologizing for being loud and proud, just like Jenna said. And this one's for you to fill in. I'm done apologizing for. Friends, go out there, have an incredible week. Do the amazing things I know you're capable of. Remember to like, follow, and share wherever you're listening to this podcast episode. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You want to know when the next latest and greatest episode is dropping, which of course is on Mondays. If you're not already, make sure you're following on social media. I'm literally everywhere. So make sure you go to your favorite platform and then one that you want to join a little bit more of and follow me. Most places I'm at done.apologizing. And if you want to be my guest, just like Jenna and all my other incredible guests, make sure you fill out the form at the link in my show notes or on any of my social media platforms. And remember, you're fabulous. You're a badass. You've got this, and I'm here for you.